Tim, you're a podcaster. What do you think of the concept of miniseries for podcasts?
I love the idea of being able to tell a story in a certain number of episodes. I love documentaries. I think it's better than grinding it out until you die.
Yeah. So many podcasters start a show and they're like, all right, I guess this is my life now. There's no stopping. I love miniseries. It allows you to relaunch with a new series, and that makes it newsy. All this is to say, I am just a big fan of breaking your content up, but why are we talking about that?
Well, we'll get to all of that and much more on this episode of TPP.
This episode is brought to us by the Vocaster from Focusrite. To win an audio interface for your own production needs, click on the link in the show notes.
Welcome to Trailer Park, the podcast trailer podcast. I'm Tim Villegas.
This is Ariel Nissenblatt. On TPP, we show off the art of the audio trailer.
Each episode of our show brings you a trailer, we chat about said trailer, and we share extra podcasty goodness.
So whether you're a podcaster looking to up your game or hear about other shows in this industry, or you're a listener looking for new podcasts to explore, TPP is for you.
Let's get into it.
We're officially past the midpoint of season 1 of our show. We've explored trailers on neurodiversity, Black identity, fiction, mysteries, and more. Today, we present the trailer for a mini-series from the show Skraps of Science and Innovation. That's why we were talking about mini-series up at the top of the show, folks. You made it.
The show is hosted by Arun Sridhar and Jojo Platt. On Scraps, Arun and Jojo explore the stories of sparks of scientific brilliance in science and innovation. Scraps is the word sparks spelt backwards.
Would you look at that? We love to see it.
The show also explores stories of people in science and helps non-experts relate to scientific concepts.
Let's get into the trailer for a mini-series recently released within the Scraps universe. The mini-series is called The Inflammatory Wanderer.
Yes, I'm talking to you, the podcast listener. Let me ask you a question. Can you tell me the last time that you know of that we eulogized and attributed even the most difficult concepts to a single eureka moment? Was it yesterday? Was it last week? Was it last month? We have this image of a human jumping out of a bathtub and running naked, shouting, "Eureka!" Or an apple falling from a tree, or in the case of psychedelic medicine, the famous bicycle trip of Albert Hoffman. If you think you love this romanticized version, let me break this idea for you.
None of these eureka moments we described and romanticized happened as a brainwave. It was because the person who we attribute its discovery to was actively thinking about it. But there is a bit of a psychological aspect for us as readers, colleagues, peers, and even, dare I say, scientists. We love the idea of saying that this one person did this, play up their name, and celebrate it.
Fortune and knowledge, or the attainment of it, always favors a prepared mind.
And in today's world, this aspect of playing up goes beyond the conferences and the plenary sessions that one attends. It spills into the news media, and for the field that we are talking about, the field of how nerves control body function, we so easily forget all the people who came before us and pushed the field forward by a huge amount, only to ensure that we hear it from someone else and we think that they were the godparents of that field. In some cases, we classify these moments as seminal moments. Many people had already thought of or had done meticulous experiments to understand and substantiate a finding, yet we know very little about it, or much rather about them. And this is Skraps Bioelectronic Medicines, and you're listening to our special mini-series, The Inflammatory Wanderer, a series where we go behind the very premise that urban legends describe as the discovery that spawned the entire bioelectronic medicine revolution.
This is the Inflammatory Wanderer, a Skraps original podcast that is going to lay it all bare for you so that you can understand the history, the way it really happened.
So, what'd you think, Ariel?
I loved the music and the sound design in general. I love how it weaved in and out. It amped up our feelings of anticipation and then it calmed us down at times. The music was so epic sounding. It was so beautiful. What was that? Violins? I thought it was so much fun, but I'd love to know, what are your initial thoughts, Tim?
You use the word epic, and I think that is a great word to describe this trailer. And it's also beautiful. So I just wanted to keep listening to it over and over again. Now, I have to admit, I'm a little confused about the topic. I'm not familiar with bioelectric medicine. But here's the thing about the trailer.
Well, you're not. That was kind of a requirement for being my co-host.
Oh, man. Even though I was slightly confused, I definitely want to listen to this podcast. And I think that's the point for people making trailers. Make it sound as fantastic as possible. And even if the topic isn't familiar with the listener, they're more likely to search it out and satisfy their curiosity.
Something that I was curious about that wasn't explained was the title, The Inflammatory Wanderer. I love what that conjures in my brain, but I have no idea what it means. And I think that's because as a layperson, meaning I'm not familiar with the field of bioelectric medicine, which I know I just said was a requirement for being my co-host, but spoiler, I'm also not an expert. I wonder if that'll be something that becomes clear in the series as it unfolds. And I think it's a really fine line to walk. The goal of the show is to make science accessible, but to still be appealing to people who are in the know, to scientists. So the trailer really needs to be in that sweet spot of not boring the experts, but also not alienating the non-scientists, aka me and you. How do you think they walked that line? How do you think that was accomplished in the trailer, at least?
I think if you had any sort of background knowledge about bioelectric medicine or what Inflammatory Wanderer means, I think you'd be all in on this podcast. But for me, who doesn't know much about it, it just really piques my interest.
Well, lucky for us, we got a chance to speak with Arun about the trailer.
Here's what he said when we asked how this miniseries fits into the overall mission of the show.
Our podcast, Skraps, is a play on the word sparks, where we believe that stories of how innovation in science is made and how these ideas or sparks are synthesized to workable innovation and its stories that we believe are not told enough. Our last season was on bioelectronic medicines, which to a layperson, bioelectronic medicines are medicines that are not chemicals. Example of these are brain stimulation devices that are used for Parkinson's and spinal cord stimulation devices that are used for intractable pain. There is an emerging treatment for arthritis, where a device might actually be cheaper and potentially more effective than the existing pharmaceutical treatments. And the podcast miniseries is titled Inflammatory Wanderer because the nerve target that we are taking as an example is called as the vagus. And this literally translates to the wanderer. And because some of the facts that we might uncover might be inflammatory, we called it as the Inflammatory Wanderer.
Thank you to Arun for sharing the trailer for the Inflammatory Wanderer miniseries within Skraps with us on this show. Find the show by going to scrapspodcast.com. That's Scraps with a K.
You know what other website has a K in the title? Wow, we're really reaching here, aren't we? It's just going to become a thing now that we have these laughable transitions. It's our website, trailerparkpodcast.crd.co.
You call that laughable? I call that great writing, Tim. Well, if you go to our website, you can learn more about us. You can find links to our sponsors. You can even submit your own trailer for our consideration.
You can also email us at hello@trailerparkpod.com. We're also just a DM away on Instagram at trailerpark_podcast.
And I've got a few business announcements. First, Thank you to Pocket Cast for featuring us on the homepage of the app earlier this month. It was truly such a treat to see our name in lights. And welcome to our new Pocket Cast listeners. Hello, you know who you are. And next, a review from Apple Podcasts. Tim, do you want to read this one?
Absolutely. From TJ Von P, who writes, short and to the point with useful information, the show delivers on the premise. I wish I had it the first time I was working on a podcast trailer.
Thank you, TJ Von P. What I love about that review is that it gives me a sense of who is actually listening to the show. I don't know TJ Von P. Maybe I do. Say hi if your name is just, a pseudonym and we're really good friends in real life. But that one clearly came from a creator, a podcast creator who is listening to the show maybe to up their game. If you too are a creator, hello. And if you're a listener, as in you're here to search for more podcasts to listen to, also hello. We're always curious about who our listeners are.
Well, listeners, thanks for being listeners. We'll find you back here next time at the trailer park.
Whoa, you're still here. That's great because I want to give you a chance to win a Vocaster from Focusrite.
Trailer Park Podcast is brought to you by some softwares and services that we think you're going to love because we love them.
Vocaster from Focusrite is our sleek and stylish audio interface. You can win one by clicking on the link in the show notes. We get to give one away on every episode of Season 1. Shout out to the folks who have won so far. Thank you for listening and entering.
Next, OSHA is our easy-to-use, all-in-one hosting provider.
Next, Recast Studios is our audio and videogram maker.
Next, AugX Labs is helping us make video content with AI.
And Capshow is our AI copywriting software helper.
Thanks, sponsors. We wouldn't be here without you.
This show is written by Ariel Nissenblatt and Tim Viegas. We're also your hosts.
It's mixed and designed by Tim Viegas.
Our artwork is by Kaio Slikta.
Thanks for listening.
Happy trails.
Happy trails.
Sweet.